Hello, huddlers. Every once in a while, you try a marketing approach that dramatically exceeds expectations. That approach that I'm about to share with you in detail was not my idea. I give all the credit to Alec Paul, who is the founder of a small but mighty firm called salesbrand.co. This program has had a dramatic impact on CMO huddles, and I believe it could work for many other companies, which is why I wanted to try it, because I thought that if CMOs could do this for their on behalf of their CEOs or with their CEOs, it would be a wonderful way for them to both drive revenue and pipeline and help build a profile of their CEO in the industry and get speaking events and all sorts of other good things. So let me start with just the basic idea that we're talking about here. And the basic idea is that you create a content program as a CEO. You publish conversation-provoking content at a regular frequency. In my case, I do it every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. And once you post this content and someone engages with it, you engage back with a ferocity that will kind of, you'll go, whoa, that's a lot. It sounds simple enough, and in some ways it is. You're creating content and you're posting it. But I've come to understand a lot of nuances, and I want to share those with you in detail. And at any point in time, you can put something in chat and go ahead and ask questions along the way if I go too fast. I've been doing this now, again, as I said, for over 4 months. So let me give you the starting place. So the starting place, and I'll share my screen, is the LinkedIn profile. Big surprise. We're talking about LinkedIn, right? So there you see my profile blown up a little bit. There's a couple important things here that I want to point out. The first one is that the first thing I have is CEO. And the reason why that's important, and when you're doing this for a CEO, is you can actually do connection requests, sometimes without a message, just because it says CEO, someone will accept that because CEO title comes with credibility. So that's sort of number one. What the company name is number two right there. And then I have podcast host because in some ways that's a hook for prospects for CMO huddles. So the other thing that it's important to point out is the banner. So, you know, you've got the overall promise of CMO huddles with marketing leaders, but you'll see this little thing here. It says, follow me for B2B marketing insights, with this little thing pointing down, okay? That has had a dramatic impact in combination with it in terms of followers gained, and then this thing starts to snowball. So I think that's it for the profile. And so this is 4 months ago. I wrote a post. I thought it was really interesting. It got about 3,000 likes, which is not very special. I wrote another post. And by the way, they're all start with the same notion in our case, which is a quote from someone in a huddle about an issue. And that's the big idea. The big idea here is, can you touch a nerve in your headline? It doesn't have to be a quote, but can you touch a nerve that others in your industry will want to talk about? So I did 2 of them, and we started to see it went from like 3,000 impressions to 20,000 impressions. And then this happened. So this post, the headline is, I'm not a miracle worker. Notice these long paragraphs, which everybody says, no one's ever going to read a long paragraph thing like this. Wrong. And then there's this sort of weird image. Doesn't make any sense. There's no headline in it. But I want you to start to see this, and then we can work our way backwards. 774 likes, 300 comments, 46 reposts, 113,000 impressions. Those are organic. That's not paid. We didn't even push it out to anybody. We didn't tag anybody. So 113,000 organic impressions is kind of mind-boggling. And Melissa, who's on, we sort of went, okay, well, that was fun. We did that once. Maybe we could do it again. Maybe not. Maybe that was just a flash in the pan. But we learned a fair amount from this post. Again, the headline, miracle worker. Why did that touch the nerve? Because a lot of CMOs feel like they're being asked to work miracles on small budgets. And so it was a real frustration that we touched it. So it was a nerve, right? Okay, so the next post goes out and it does okay. About 20,000 likes, which again, for an organic post is kind of mind-boggling. And we would have been happy if this program, because my average post would be maybe 2,500. So if we were averaging 10,000, it would have been thrilling. So the next post that really goes crazy is this one, which is, I can never use the word brand or brand awareness with other execs. Now, we talked about that a lot in huddles. That we know is an issue. So let me share the numbers here. We have this silly image, 800 just, likes are there, 261 comments, 60 reposts, 141,000 impressions. And by the way, just so you know, this is the highest peaking, the most that we've had in terms of impressions. So you might want to say, okay, what was the difference between this one and the last one? And the irony on this one is a troll. We had a troll. And what happened is someone would leave a comment and then the troll would comment back. And then the person who heard the troll, and that's dialogue. And you started to have all these comments going on comments and people liking comments and sharing comments. And so I'm missing one thing over here. So let me see, find this. Hang on one second. So we go here. Again, I want to point out one thing. Everybody says no one's going to read long content. No one's going to engage with it. These are long paragraphs. I didn't even break this stuff up yet. This was the 5th post of this series. But the formula was consistent from the beginning. Controversial headline, if you will, touching a nerve, headline being the opening sentence. Explain the problem that you're talking about, and then get into solutions. And you only have a certain number of words that you can do on LinkedIn in these posts. I think about 650, whatever it is. I use the maximum amount of words because I start with a document that's probably 700 words. I bring it into LinkedIn and then I edit it to the last. So we get it down to the last word, if you will. So kind of busting a myth about long content. I mean, this isn't that long. It's probably a 4-minute read. But if you're wondering, do people really read it or are they just sort of liking it and sharing it? In several of the posts over the last 16 weeks, I've included a link to another. I've included ask me for something in the 4th, 5th, or 6th paragraph of the thing. Ask me for a document that we have. And I get a lot of requests for those documents. So I know that people are reading these things. So if we think about the content for a moment, what we've got, and I'm going to sort of repeat myself at the risk of, we've got a headline, a quote in this case that touches a nerve. We explain why that's such an issue, and then offer real, interesting, pithy solutions to the problem and how folks can get around it. And in many ways, it is sort of reflective of CMO huddles and their community, in that trying to be a voice of the communities, raising, these are the issues, we can solve these together. And that's what's happening in the conversations. Now, from a visual standpoint, you will notice that every single one of these is generated, computer generated, if you will, a generative AI. I'm not an art director. I don't have time to create individual images. And what's kind of cool in this case is I have a prompt in ChatGPT that talks about office penguins and CMOs. And now what I do is every week I say, hey, I need a new version in this situation. And so what happens is this has become a family of visuals. What hasn't mattered much is, does it have words in it or not? Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Does it have a headline in it? Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. I haven't been able to, it's not, believe me, it's not the penguin images that are making these things go viral. It's the headline and the conversations. And sort of one last thought on this content. I don't use generative AI to write these at all. I don't even run it to check whether there's some logical flaws. And I do that on purpose because I want, if there's logical flaws, they're my logical flaws. And someone might point it out. Like the other day I actually used for BDRs, I use brand instead of business development rep. Somebody pointed it out and went, oh, great, thank you. And I fixed it. So I'm fine with that because that's engagement and it means that they're reading these things carefully. And that's great. And if they're looking for a thing that's wrong with it, awesome. I want to make sure that things, look, this is just a human expressing a point of view based on the best information that I've got at the time. So, and I would argue that the copy is as high standard as certainly I can get it within 2.5 hours, which is all I give myself to write these things. That's really important, obviously. And that's why I don't think you could crank out something in generative AI, post it here and expect it to go viral. You might get a draft, you might come up with some ideas for some future ones, but I don't think you can get there. I'm sure Nicole Effer would say I'm wrong, but I don't think she has numbers like this to back it up. And we do. So where were we? So we're touching a nerve. We're providing context on the problem. We offer a solution. Now, in future versions, and I'll show you, let's see if this one does that. Future versions of this, I start to break it up a little bit. And I start to include language that is sort of, sound bites, like leads are just noise in this one. And I started to include quotes. And here's the headline, how many leads do you have today? This one did pretty well. 56,000 organic impressions. By the way, again, just so you know, we stopped advertising on LinkedIn the minute these posts started to do well, and have been better for it in any number of ways. So yeah, you see the consistent visuals, but there's no magic here in terms of, I'm not like, the single sentence things. There's not a lot of, it's just written with a problem, and a solution. That's the structure of these things. Okay. So I want to go through a couple more examples of them, and then I want to sort of get to some other aspects of this. So here's one. Recently, you'll see the visual, growth is not a strategy. I wanted to see, and here we go. So now you see, this one, I actually broke it up and I said, leaders own challenges. I gave a secondary headline that could be quoted. And then the primary one, growth is not a strategy. It's an outcome of successful strategy. I didn't do that in the earlier ones. If I were to start again, I would try to do that. I'm writing sort of like these sound bites, and it was amazing to see growth is not a strategy became quoted so many times. And, here's the promise of what we're going to do. And again, almost 50,000 impressions, 59 reposts. So if you want to know what drives virality or virality, it's right. If there is such a word, we're touching a nerve, like growth is not a strategy. There are comments on the comments, and this is tricky, and I'll get into the back end mechanics of this, but there are comments on the comments. The reposts are a lot. If somebody reposts something, it is a pure validation that this content is worth reading, and they share it and they're willing to put it out in their network. And that obviously goes to and compounds the reach of these programs. So we're driving virality by touching a nerve, comments and comments on the comments, reposts. And of course, it helps if you have a troll. Now let's talk about engagement, because this is the critical part of this. So far, I've just said, yeah, I've got high reach. What I haven't told you is the results. We have, let's see, my follower count has gone up 25%. Our newsletter follower count has gone up 1,000 or 2. Traffic to CMO huddles has gone up. Our close rate has shortened. Huddlers are seeing this and appreciating the content. I don't think there's and I know Melissa could probably come up with 5 other halo effect. Oh, it's had a halo effect on our other content, because we're still posting every day, but these just go out on a Saturday morning, and they get to sort of they get to grow a little bit over Saturday and Sunday. I don't post on Sunday. So these have had an impact on every aspect of what you would call your pipeline. We call it our pipeline too. Every aspect. Now, how do we turn this into business? And this is the tedious part of this. This is the part where, if you were lucky enough to get your CEO to agree to do this, because I do believe that CEOs who want to be industry leaders, who, for example, want to get invited to conferences to speak about the industry, who want to, say, establish a new category, all of these reasons for the CEO to take stands and stir up a little bit of and show that they are rallying on behalf of your constituency. There has to be this part of it, which is you have to be ready to engage with the target that is engaging with you. So what does that look like? So yeah, my Saturdays are not my own anymore. Because what happens is, the minute it goes out at 10 o'clock and I start to see comments, I have to comment on those comments. I have to ask a question. I have to engage with them. If they actually argue and they say, I disagree, Drew, you missed it by a mile, I'll go, oh, that's interesting. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. And I need to engage with them, because that's what gets this thing moving. So now, does your CEO have to do that? No, but someone who has permission to speak and engage with, like the CEO, could do that part of it. This friend of mine, Alec Paul, his company does in fact do that. But he doesn't ghostwrite the content. He insists that the CEOs write their own content. That's something we should talk about. I'll come back to that. So, all right. So this thing has gone out on a Saturday, 5, 10 comments come in. I comment on the comments, and I'll usually ask a question. Now, the first place I'll start with is all the people who left comments. And I will look at it and I'll say, oh, Debbie Murphy, she's a first connection. Great. I don't need to do anything with her. But if I go farther down and I find someone who isn't a first connection, which it's too late on this one, because anybody who was a first connection before is now. And I'll explain how that works. So let's go to comments instead. Here we go. These are just reactions, right? And so we've got all these people who are first connections. Some of these folks were second connections. And in some cases, I literally just hit the connect button. I didn't send them a message at all. And about 80% of those, because of the timeliness of it, 80% of those accepted those connection requests. Now, I'm only doing that with CMOs. I'm not doing that with anybody else who is not in our target. And in some cases, if I have time, or if it's Monday and our team is ready, we can reach out on behalf of me and send them just thank you. Hey, thanks for engaging with the post. Would love to be connected with you. That's kind of how we've added. I've probably grown connections and follower count way because of this. So, look, there's a lot of folks that are first connections because we've worked this. Now, if they're a first connection, Jenny Powers, Vital Source, and she's not in CMO huddles already, that's a prospect. There it is right there. There is someone who could be and should be in CMO huddles, right? We should get them. And so now there's a basis of a conversation, particularly if they left a comment or they found it insightful, and we could just narrow down to that. hey, these people found it insightful. Look, Jenny Petty, not in our target audience. Show more results. You know, we're finding a vice president of marketing, Danielle, she's in our target. And so what should I do? And it's just for fun. We'll follow up on this. I'm going to hit her profile and I'm going to just send her a blind connection request and see what happens. It's okay. I can do that. This is a live demo. It's good. So now we go back to where we were, which is here. So your CEO doesn't have to do that, but somebody needs to do it. We're going through the list. These are the people who this content was made for. They got engaged with it. Where are if there's prospects in here, it's up to me and our team to engage with them and bring them into the fold as the top, right? This is top of the funnel work, and we're pushing them down the funnel. I'm going to pause for a second, and I just want to make sure that this stuff is clear. And if anybody has any questions about where we are with this or any feedback. Also need some water.
Drew, I just want to echo, I put it in the chat, but I want to echo your comment about how critically important it is. If somebody makes a comment on your post, you really need to reply to that comment or make a comment on that comment within an hour or 60 minutes of that initial comment, because the LinkedIn algorithm values that engagement, that quick engagement. And so, for example, with the LinkedIn Wednesdays that many of us do,
yes,
for CMO huddles, I actually have now scheduled more time for me to engage with fellow CMO huddles posts, and also to reply to comments on my own posts. Because if you don't do that, you miss out on the power of the LinkedIn algorithm.
Exactly. Yeah, I have found that that hour is less, it doesn't matter as much on these Saturday posts. Like if I just get to them in the same day, it's fine, assuming there's enough engagement already. Yeah, I mean, it does. What matters is the engaging with the engagers. That's the fundamental message that I want to say. Timeliness, yes, is very, very helpful, as we've seen with our Wednesday Slack program. So let's see. I'm going to
question.
Yes, go ahead.
So going back to your LinkedIn profile, if implementing this for my company, are these posts coming from the CEO or the company profile?
Oh, they have to. Thank you for that question. They have to come from the CEO. Nobody wants to engage with a company. Everybody wants to engage. These are really human. The whole thing is human. And so if these are coming from the company, it's like, you know, and maybe there's some brands that people actually care about. And you know, I'd love to believe that people actually care about CMO huddles, but I think they care more about me as an individual and the sort of learnings that I've been able to get as a result of CMO huddles. So I think that's a critical thing. Yes, this must be and so far. And by the way, I'm not the only one doing this. The CEO of Pavilion has done it effectively. This guy, Alec Paul, has been behind the scenes doing it. Doesn't have to be a services company. There are other examples out there. I'm not going to sort of go through those now because I don't have the behind the scenes. I can't see their impressions, but you get to see them here. So you might wonder, whoops, you go, God, Drew, this is incredibly labor intensive. Yes, it is incredibly labor intensive. I do believe there are components. The most important thing that your CEO needs to do is write a thought-provoking, nerve-touching piece that is empathetic to the target audience. I feel your pain. I know why the source of that pain, and I would love to help you work your way through it. That's what these posts are about. I feel your pain. I hear your pain. And that's the thing your CEO has to do. Everything else, you could get someone on your team to do, or B, outsource. It's tricky to outsource it. but it's doable. You just have to work with somebody you trust. You have to give them LinkedIn access. They have to be able to respond as the CEO. Again, that's tricky. Not everybody wants to let folks do it. So that's why often you would do it in-house. But if you look at the number of people here, 696, we had to go through every single one of those. And the reason you saw so many first connections is because when we went through them, every single person that was qualified, with the exception of some folks who have liked this post after the first week, we've engaged with. That's a lot. That's a lot. But they've also engaged with us. And so it's not just us doing this. They've gone from here. They said, oh, I hadn't heard of CMO huddles. Huh, that's interesting. Maybe I should find out more. And they visit CMO huddles, or they subscribe to The Cut, the newsletter, which is a great nurture stream, because if they're not ready to join CMO huddles, that's fine too, but because they get the newsletter and they stay top of mind. So all of that is good. The tricky part of this is there are so many different ways that this takes time and intentionality. I think that's a word too, that you are engaging on a very human, on a very real level with individuals. And it's a risk to do the blind connection request. And so most of the time I don't, but on some of these posts where speed mattered, because we got a lot of impressions in a short period of time, I did do blind. It was a Saturday, and it's like, there were 50 people that I needed to get to. And if I wrote an individual note to every single one of them, it would have been Sunday. So
Drew,
yes.
I wonder how many CEOs are empathetic thought leaders with the time and the inclination and the skill set to do what you described.
It is true. And I want to thank you for bringing that up. So what if A, your CEO can't think of these things, B, doesn't have the ability to write them, and C, doesn't believe it's worth their time? Okay, got it. So here is a reasonable facsimile of this program that may or may not work. So one of the things that I first would suggest to you, and this is always good, and I always say this, is talk to your customers and understand their pain points. And that can happen at any number of levels. Your salespeople are talking to prospects all the time. Are they getting their pain points out, and are they able to sort of capture those in quotes? And is there a mechanism for capturing them? Do you have a customer advisory board where you're hearing these pain points? Do you as the CMO, are you engaging with your customers in a way that can allow these pain points? So if you can't get them from the CEO, you could say, hey, we heard these 10 pain points. What do you have to say about that, Mr. or Ms. Or you CEO? What do you think? And you record their thoughts to that problem, so that it's their thinking. At least you give them the problem, the nerve, and you let them respond to, why do you think this is the case? And what do you think we could do about it? And in doing that, a really good writer could take that and turn it into a empathetic, thought-provoking, conversation-provoking piece, right? And look, a really good writer can figure out how to write in the voice of somebody else. That's what writers do often. I have a dear friend, Chris Badalian, a novelist, and 2/3 of his books are narrated where the protagonist is a woman, including one of his first books. He's writing in the voice of a woman. That's what writers do. You figure out how to write in somebody else's voice if you can't do it write in your own. So, but you need a good writer, and you know the difference, and you can read it and you say, gee, is there anything quotable in here? And if there's nothing quotable in the writing, then they're not the right person. Now, you have to ask them to do that. So that's part one. So JD, does that answer your question? Again, I'm not certain that will work as well. It's funny because I talked to Alec Paul about this, because I was kind of shocked. He really insists that the CEO do this. So it's often the CEOs who are willing to do it are a founder CEO who wants to be seen as a leader in their industry, who wants to be speaking at these events and asked to speak as having to be paid to speak. And this is a big deal for a lot of folks. You know, there a lot of CEOs won't want to do this. They won't want to do it because they don't want to touch a nerve. They don't want to say anything controversial. And yeah, it won't work then. And so,
and many people, even if they're very, 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 very skilled, don't write very well and are uncomfortable that they don't write very well, and they're unwilling to expose their writing because
Right.
they're vulnerable in that area.
yeah, and they overthink it too. I mean, part of this is why if you interviewed them like you were doing a podcast, and you say, well, just tell me, you know, here's the issue. Why do you think that's the case? They'll dictate 1, 2, 3, probably pretty good answers.
Sure.
And then you say, okay, well, that's good. I think, what do you think are the solutions to that problem? They'll probably dictate 1, 2, 3. I mean, they're a CEO. They believe they got the answers. That's even if they don't, they'll come up with ones. And that way you can get this content out of them so that you know it's their point of view. I don't think it works if it somehow isn't real and connected to the what the CEO is thinking about. So let's see. Yes, I'm looking at the questions just to see if yes. Does the website traffic go up on Saturday or is there a big lag? That's a good question. I don't know if we know the answer to that, but we'll find out and get back to you. We know it goes up and it's been a steady, but more importantly, what we do see is we see people applying to be starters or applying for a transition team, which are the two routes into CMO huddles, goes up on Sunday and Saturday. Absolutely. Those are the 2 days that we get them. So that it's a pure cause and effect. And I would say,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm curious, and I'm sorry, I'm someplace where it's a little loud, so not on camera. I'm curious, you know, did you pick Saturday for this? And I love these, by the way. I actually look forward to them Saturday morning. Did you pick Saturday because a lot of people, and I don't have exact data to prove this other than just like anecdotal data from years of being in digital and talking to lots of people, a lot of people are out on LinkedIn on the weekend thinking about their career.
I wish
and-
it was more methodical or specific. It's not. What happened is we have posts Monday through Friday, and I looked at that and our calendar was full, if you will, because we got Tuesday tips and we have the Wednesday wisdoms. So, and I thought, well, and also I'm not always busy on Saturdays so I could do it. So I just picked it randomly because it was a day on the calendar. But I think it surprised us that it has done as well as it has, given the fact that it's Saturday. But I do think that LinkedIn has become, you know, it's professional dopamine. I think you start in there, you're looking at your phone and you start scrolling down, and I feel fortunate now, Katrina, that there are a number of folks like yourself who have become who say, hey, it's Drew's post and coffee. So
yeah. Well, I think LinkedIn is more than just Monday through Friday now. I think if you rewound a handful of years, it was, you know, people really just searching job postings or a few things on the weekend, but not really out consuming and engaging content. But it feels much more 7 days a week to me, I see. And I think your example here kind of proves that out as well.
Right. And just so you know, I don't always write. I often will write this in advance and I will schedule it to go live on at 10 o'clock on a Saturday. The first few went live at 11 o'clock on Saturday because I needed the morning to write them. Now I get them done usually beforehand. So I don't know if I were a CEO at another company and it was a big enough company, I would try it on a weekday only because you're going to ask your employees to work on a Saturday. It's a lot. And, I can ask me to work on a Saturday. So I do it, but I don't know if it's tied to the day of the week as much as that's when it happened. I'm not going to change it now because it's working too well. So there's a correlation. I don't know if it's a causation or not. Yes, Saturday weekends seem to be great times. I want to show a couple of other posts just to see if it springs anything. This one with the headline was, I got PE'd. Oh, I wanted to share this one. Shouted an agitated veteran CMO at a 420 million tech company. This one did pretty well, 26,000 impressions. But here's the funniest part of that is, yes, it touched a nerve. All these folks working at a PE firm felt the pain right away. And it was, this is very much of a real post. This very much happened in a conversation I had. But some of the CMOs felt really uncomfortable commenting on it, because they didn't want their PE firm to see their comment on the thing. So this one did not get as many comments as it got a fair amount of remarks, but not as many as some of the others. And so it started really well. So you can touch a nerve, and sometimes it's so close to home that some people won't be comfortable doing it. And then then there's the occasional dud. Let's see if that's what this is. This one was, 22,000, pretty good. Our CEO called me out for getting less done in year 2. But again, what's weird about these things is, and these are long paragraphs with sort of, and this one has, 3 quick solutions. And, there's no rhyme or reason to the visual other than, there's no headline in the visual, right? So it's not, someone thought it was, it's the visuals, and it's not, because some do well and some don't. It is the head.
So Drew, there's 2 other things as you've gone through these that I think are pertinent.
Yes, good, please.
There's a consistency, and they're written in the same format, the same flow. The fact that they always start with the quote, and then there's the problem, then the solution. There's a branding to the penguin pictures that is uniquely you.
Yep.
Other than those of us that wear the stupid hat sometimes. But there's a branding to it that it's kind of like the Far Side cartoons, right? That the pictures were all the same.
Yeah.
So that this is a Drew special. And the timing is very, very important. I have newsletters I get from other people that I always read them because I know it's Monday at 10 a.m. and here it comes. So that I'd say the Saturday isn't as important as the consistency of always the same day and time.
Bing, 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 ding. Yeah, bingo. Yes, absolutely. All of those things. Consistency, the branding, the visual cue, the consistency of those visual cues. It's funny, people have asked, I've had several comments, why the generative AI one? And it's like, why not? It's on brand and they're consistent, and I don't know why that, but folks have dinged me for that. I go, okay, well, that's engagement too. And by the way, having haters or having people who, like, as I call them, trolls, we had one in one of the posts. I think the guy must have been binge drinking on a Saturday because the comments were just crazy, but he just kept commenting. So anyway, all comments are good is the bottom line on this. And so, yeah. But yes, you're absolutely right, JD. Those are things that we've done. I want to make sure that I did cover all the numbers here because I sort of pulled some together. Oh yeah. Follower count up 25%, newsletter followers up 30%, halo effect on all our other content, traffic and registration, literally people signing up, has gone up. Our close rate has gone up. Requests for coaching has gone up, and we stopped running LinkedIn ads. We didn't need it. We got more out of this than, I don't know what we were paying. I don't know, spending about 150 a week on LinkedIn. This is delivering way more. So I wrote some questions down and I welcome more of yours. Could this work for your CEO? Again, I think it might, and you have to sort of evaluate your CEO and think about their interest in becoming a voice in the industry and what that does and why that matters. Because it's a lot easier to become a voice in the industry as a CEO than it is as a company. It just is, because you don't invite a company to speak. You invite an individual to speak. And again, that's the sort of moment where you go, this is working because this conference wants me to do a keynote. That's, I mean, one of the measures. Will it go viral in the third post? I don't know, but if you keep at it and do it consistently, it will. Will all of them be a hit? No. Sometimes there's some duds in here. And I am not very good, even though I've done this a lot, at predicting when they will go viral and when they won't. You would say, well, it's never going to work on a holiday weekend. It did. It's never going to work in the summer. It is. You can't predict what topics will and won't. You sort of have a feeling, but as long as they are real and you think they are a nerve, there's a good chance that and you keep at it. Can the engagement be outsourced? Yes, with caveats. That meaning you really have to trust the folks that are doing this. They need to be highly professional. They need to be skilled writers. They need to understand your industry and be able to answer questions articulately. How do you figure out topic? Talk to your customers. Find their pain points. And what I love about this particular challenge is it's yet another reason for CMOs to talk to their customers. Not that you don't have enough, like, you know, satisfaction and product improvement and ideas for marketing. This is yet another reason to talk to them. Is this time intensive? Oh my God, yes, it is. It takes me 2 to 3 hours to write the post, probably another, I don't know, 2 to 3 hours to write it. And I'm a pretty fast writer now. And then it takes about a minimum of 2 hours of engagement time per post, probably 3 hours. So that's 5 hours a week. And does anybody want their CEO spending 5 hours a week on this? No, but maybe 2, or maybe at least 1 getting the ideas. So that's the trade-off here. But the CEO of Pavilion publicly has said this approach is driving 20 to 25% of their enrollments. Not, site traffic, enrollments there. So is it worth that individual's time given how big Pavilion is? The CEO has said yes. That's the program. Let's see if there's anything else that I wanted to share. Let's see.
A logical question that my CEO might have is, good idea. Let me do it monthly instead.
Interesting. I don't think it'll work.
I don't think it will either, but I can just picture how CEOs work, that they will think once a week is a huge investment. Let me lower my investment.
Right.
Can I still get a good ROI on once a month?
Would it be better than none a month?
Sure.
Yeah. Will it have the impact that this program is having? It can't. I mean, it's going to be at minimum 1 quarter as effective, but you don't learn as quickly. You don't build momentum. It won't provide a halo effect for all your other content. it won't become a recognizable series that people say, hey,
Yeah.
I'm going to wake up and drink my coffee with this, right? This is regular. This is like programming Good Morning America or Saturday Morning America, right? It's the marketing hour.
CBS Saturday morning.
Yeah. And so doing it once a month makes it a special.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I don't think it'll work that way. But I would say if you sat down with the CEO and said, here are 10 topics and pain points that our community has raised, let's spend an hour going through your thoughts on each of those. You could probably get the briefing and information that you need from the CEO in an hour. Maybe two, four posts.
If you had a handful of people that were thought leaders of sorts, could you rotate it?
It's an
We-
interesting question. And
Probably
would,
the same answer. It probably is better than not doing anything, but not as
Right.
good as this. Probably the same answer, I would guess.
exactly. And if you think about it, you're essentially building 4 brands instead of 1 by doing that, because they're 4 individuals. And
But you
you
could
know,
keep a thread of consistency. You could
could.
do the picture being of a similar ilk, the format being of a similar ilk, starting with a quote, and it could be like the second Thursday is the CMO, the third Thursday is the CTO, the fourth Thursday is the CEO or something.
Right.
I'm trying to brainstorm on ways to modify this.
Yeah, I think that is a testable proposition. I did want to point out, I don't think it's about starting with a quote. I don't
No, I
think
know.
that's an important part. I think it is about starting with a pain point.
You could start with a statistic.
Right. You could.
Always
I-
start with the number, but the point is it would be recognizable right out of the gate.
Exactly.
That's what
And
the quote does, is it makes
what
it
you-
recognizable.
What you can't see here that really is, so what shows up in people's feeds is, let me go here, view profile. And then let me get to posts. Hang on one second. So this is what posts, no, activity posts. Okay. Show all posts. Great. Okay, just a second. So this is important to this thing because all people see is this, right? They say Drew, they see the visual, and then they see the statement. And that's really important because that's all you have to hook them and establish this series. So, and I think that's one that, so whether it's a quote or it's thing, but that opening, how many words that is, that's all people see. And then the visual. So, oh, okay, this is one of Drew's things. And then you can see the next one, right? The biggest surprise is, and by the way, this post didn't do that well. I can't really figure out why necessarily. The biggest surprise is that our CFO has some good ideas, but it's just not, probably the best guess is it wasn't a nerve. Didn't touch a nerve. Did okay. Look, I think anybody would be happy with 4,600 organic impressions on a post. It's just, if your average is 25,000, this looks like a loser.
By the way, I just did one that got almost this exact number of impressions, and I was elated until I sat through your presentation.
Yeah, no, agree.
Thanks, Drew.
This is the thing. This changes your sort of expectations of what you can do organically on LinkedIn. And this one, but this one's easy to see why it worked. Why can't you just get more pipeline as the headline? And then the really powerful statement, growth is not a strategy, is in the visual. So you kind of got 2 hooks going, and it's in the series.